My name is Wayne Scott II, and here's my story. 17 years ago today, the Belleville News-Democrat published a story. The story told was about a prominent attorney that had sexually accosted an 18-year-old man. The day after the article had run, the man had been charged with battery. His name was released to the news, and so was the victim. That man, the victim, was me. The prominent attorney was released from jail on a $100 bond and a simple battery charge. At that time in my life, I'd been dealing with a lot. I was a young parent. I was dealing with revelations that I'd suppressed memories of childhood molestation. I dropped out of school a couple years earlier when I was 15. I really felt like I was going nowhere fast. And then I was charged with a felony, and the court case just dragged on and on and on. On October 27th, right after court, myself and several other people entered an elevator and we were headed down. It was a lighthearted conversation. When I got off of the elevator, I was approached by Ronald Duebbert. He struck up conversation with me, told me that he'd seen me at several of my cases, and asked if I wanted to talk more about the case. I said sure, of course. I knew that I had a felony charge, and any help from an attorney was welcomed. We walked out of the courthouse, and he asked me where I had parked. I told him that I worked right down the street at an antique store, so I wasn't driving. He told me that we could chat a little bit about my case, and he would take me to my work. He would drop me off on the way to his office. So we walked to his car. I told him about my case. By the time we got to his car, I pretty much summed up my case. It was simple. He said that he could help me out, and how about he show me where his office was at. So we were in the car, we drove over to his office, which was at the corner of Washington and Charles, South Charles Street. We pulled into the parking lot behind it, and I remember he turned and pointed and said that his office was in that building, and we started to talk about payment. I didn't have a lot of money, I was just a kid. He said, oh, we could work something out. And then he reached over and grabbed my penis, and I remember he said, what does it take to get this hard? I'll never forget that line. I'd frozen. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't move. I just sat there, frozen. At that time, I imagined I became that little boy again. Thankfully, by the grace of God, my cell phone rang. And one of my clients or customers from the antique store was calling, and I remember just saying whatever. Like, oh, I'll be right there. Yeah, I know. And then I was pointing and pushing him off and directing him to drive. And he drove me over to near my workplace. He didn't even take me in front of it. He dropped me off down by the sporting goods store. And he just sped off. I went in, I told my boss and a good friend of mine who was near, and we decided to contact the police and press charges. We did, and I was also interviewed by the newspaper, and honestly, the newspaper ran the article on the 28th. They ran the accusation, and then they ran the when he was charged. And from that point on, friendships that I had were different. Someone had said, "Oh, you're just making this up for attention." The person that worked across the street from my job would even come outside when I was working, and he would ask like, "Oh, hey, Wayne, how's the gay life treating you? Ha ha ha." And I think back to that time about how, as a victim, I was treated. Even though I tried to have the guts to step forward. It's not easy. But I also think about how this man denied the charges in the newspaper. He tried to make it seem like I was some young punk that was making it up. He never sought me out to ask forgiveness. He just continues on with his life as an attorney. And now he's running for public office. How can we elect somebody that does not have the foresight to see that their aggressive, their inappropriate, their perverted actions can have a negative effect on someone years and years and years into the future? We can't elect him judge. Now, this isn't about Republican or Democrat at all. This is about right and wrong. And Ronald Duebbert is not right.